Good afternoon, everyone. You are in the spotlight with Brian Gardner for this Friday, December the 18th, 2015. Good to have you all here for this In the Spotlight 4-1 show here on this Friday afternoon. Happy Star Wars Day for those of you that are Star Wars fans or just plain interested in the new movie. It's a big day for that. Many people went out last night and saw the movie, and a lot of people are going out today, this afternoon, tonight to see the movie. So it's a big box office day, no doubt about it. I went. Most of you already know this. Those of you that are regular fans of the show, I went last night, and it was an amazing, amazing time. But this is not a movie show. This is not an entertainment show. This is our football show for this week. So I'll keep any thoughts on Star Wars off the show for the moment. But yeah, so all right, so this is our Football Blitz show for this week. We have a lot to get to. We are also on the air about an hour later than we had planned. I do apologize for that. I didn't really give anybody notice of that. This kind of happened. One of those things where you keep getting delayed. So yeah. But I apologize for that. So let's get right down to it. Before we get into everything we're going to be doing here today, as always, I want to remind you all the ways that you can interact and contribute to the show. Have your voice heard by emailing us at itspotlight401@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight401. And please remember to use the hashtags, either hashtag itspotlight401, hashtag ITS5, which represents our 5th anniversary on the air as a podcast, or for our football shows for football shows, we use the special hashtag Football Blitz or hashtag ITS Football Blitz. Use any of those hashtags if you can. You can also find us on Facebook to search for In the Spotlight 411, and then once you find our page, make sure you like it. All right, so here's what the deal is for today. As we always do, we'll look back at last week's NFL games, look ahead to this week's, look back at our predictions, all that good stuff. On the college football side of things, I'll give you a brief little segment on the Heisman, because a lot of you have asked me to talk about how I felt about the Heisman and how it all worked out. So I'll do a little bit with that. And then we will, as I mentioned on our primetime shows this week, I've decided that what we're going to do is we're going to split. Last year we did all the bowl games all at once, including the playoff games. Then I talked about the playoff games as we went. We're not going to do that this year. What we're going to do is we're going to split our bowl game preview into 2 shows, and then we'll pick the playoffs completely separate the week after. So, and we can do that this year because of the way the weeks end up, like with the way the games are aligned and stuff. We can do that more easier this year than we probably could have last year. So today, what we'll do is at the end of the show for our college football kind of discussion for today, we will preview. We'll preview like the first half of the bowl. So like a lot of the early bowl games, which will be starting at the early part of next week. And then we'll do the second half on next week's show, next week's football show. And then the week after we'll preview and predict the playoff games. And then that way all the bowl games get their due. We can kind of, it's not as rushed. And it's not as complicated for people to kind of decipher and all that. So another thing I want to mention too, one of the things that I made a habit of doing on these Football Blitz shows, and I like doing it because I think it adds to the show. One of the things I like about doing with these Football Blitz shows, at the end of the show, usually we'll address questions or comments from our fans, either related to the NFL or college football. We've been doing that almost every week. Since we've been here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube, I think we've been doing it pretty much every week. Now, one of the things about that segment is this. It only goes as far as what people sent to me. I think there was a couple weeks ago I didn't do it because there really wasn't a whole lot that I hadn't already discussed, in a previous week or in that particular show. And so we really didn't do that segment because we just didn't have anything new to add, anything new to address, or, all the questions or comments that I did get from fans were very repetitive based on what we'd already discussed, and everything already had been addressed. So, because people always ask me if we don't do something, like, well, why didn't you do it? I'm like, well, if it's a participation segment that thrives off of what the fans send me, if what they send me doesn't really give us anything that we haven't already discussed or anything that hasn't already been addressed, then really you can't really do anything. And the reason why I'm saying this is because this is going to be one of those weeks. We are not going to do our question and comment portion of the show because and I always do this before the show. I look through everything that's sent in, and then I look at, well, what are we going to talk about during the show? And is there anything that was sent in that's not going to be addressed during the show? And if there isn't, then where you going? Okay, I want it to be repetitive. So this week there will be no questions or comments on this particular show. Now, one of the things too is there isn't a whole lot going on right now that we're not going to already address. We're going to talk about bowl games. We're going to talk about the playoffs and everything else from the NFL, playoff race in the NFL and everything. And at this point, so much of the big topics outside of those have been discussed. And you're not going to really have any topics outside of playoff races and what's on the till the end of the regular season in the NFL when coaches get fired and all that stuff. So I guess I can see why kind of questions and comments kind of dry up a little bit right now, because now everything's kind of in a holding as far as anything that's not revolving around on the field or playoff races or whatever. All that stuff's going to be put on hold until things play out over these next couple of weeks. So it makes sense that there wouldn't be a whole lot there outside of like, well, what do you think about this team's chances? Or what do you think about the Heisman? Or what do you think about this? These things are all things we're going to address already on the show. So there's no need to, address them more than once within a show. And that's why there's really no questions or comments that that are really there to address. And that's why we won't be doing that segment here today. And what are we doing on the next show and so on is depending on what is sent into us. So just keep that in mind, because I know people always question, like, if I don't do a particular segment that I do regularly, they always wonder, like, why? Well, that's kind of, if it's something that thrives off of the fans, and just be aware that if I don't do it, the chances are that whatever was sent in was repetitive or something that was already addressed or something like that. So just assume that if that ever happens. All right. So we got a lot to get to. We're going to start in the NFL by looking at last week's games, then looking ahead to this week's, all that stuff. And then, again, we'll do the part one of our college football bowl preview in the latter half of the show. So that's what's coming at you here this afternoon. And here's the other thing, too, about today's show. It's not going to be a very long show. And that's not it's not because I don't want it to be a long show. I don't care if it's long or short. There are some weeks I prefer it to be short, but honestly, you get to this part of the season in the NFL, and you tend to focus more on the games that matter, and that's not the slight on some teams out there, but you tend to focus more on the games that matter, like the games that have playoff implications, and less about everything else. So you start reducing the amount of games you talk about, and that means shorter discussion, and that means quicker shows. But you add to it the fact that last week's NFL games were completely and utterly abysmal. That had to be the worst week of NFL games I have seen in probably 2 seasons. It was the amount of play, the quality of play last week, and the amount of horrible losses by some teams, and really just a lot of blowout games and some puzzling blowout games. And that really was the theme of week 14. It got off to a wonderful start of a great Thursday night game last week between the Cardinals and the Vikings, which the Cardinals won. We talked about that game on last Friday's show. And you get a decent game with the Bills and the Eagles, which the Eagles won 23-20, identical scores, the first 2 games I just mentioned. And, a great win for the Eagles, who all of a sudden have momentum and are hot right now. A tough loss for the Bills, who right now the chances of them making it with 3 weeks to go is very, very slim. Still there, but very, very slim. But the Eagles doing their best to get firmly back into things right there at the top of the NFC East. So that it seemed like after that Bills-Eagles game, everything just went downhill. Okay, everything. You had a couple. I won't say a couple of bad games, but a couple of decent games in that first window. Browns 49ers doesn't matter, but it was a nice win for the Browns over the 49ers. Rams Lions no longer matters because the Rams are just completely out of it at this point. But a nice win for the Rams, which they needed, 21-14 over the Lions. All right, those games don't really matter. Saints Buccaneers matter because Tampa was kind of on the fringe of still being, I guess, sort of quasi alive in the playoff race. Well, the Saints get a much needed win, much like, for pride reasons, much like the Rams, the Browns, etc. They get a win 24-17, gets them to 5-8. That knocks the Buccaneers to 6-7, which really is like the Bills. You're on the outside looking, you're on that fringe still, but your chances are very, very slim. But that wasn't but again, not a horribly played game. None of these games so far are horribly played. But they were a drop-off considering the Cardinals-Vikings Thursday night game and the Bills-Eagles game in that 1 o'clock window on Sunday. You're noticing a small drop-off as the games go on. The Jets get an easy win over the Titans, 30-8. Horrible loss for the Titans. They have a big win for the Jets, who are 8-5, and they're looking good right now as far as still being in the hunt. All right, and now this is where things got horrible, okay? This is where things got horrible. So, as I said, the quality of play kind of dropped as the Week 14 went on. You get to this game, a game that a lot of people were looking forward to, the Steelers and the Bengals. Now, this is one of those games that you kind of put an asterisk, even though it was an awful game to watch. So much of it was because of injuries. Most notably, injuries to Andy Dalton, who we don't know what his status is going to be. Many people feel like he'll be back for the playoffs for the Bengals. Regardless, this was a shattering game for the Bengals. Because here's what this game did for them. All right, the Bengals started off so well. They got to their bye week, and then they lost, and then everything kind of snowballed from there. Okay. And, they got back on track in recent weeks, but they still haven't looked the same. Their injuries are starting to become a problem, and then Dalton goes down. Now they're shaken, and then they lose to the Steelers at home, 33-20 in an ugly game. Steelers it wasn't exactly pretty for the Steelers either, but they got the job done. And here's what this does to the Bengals, okay? What this does to the Bengals is this. You're not going to have Andy Dalton for the rest of the regular season. You got 3 weeks to go. Now this division is not put away. The Steelers are 8-5. And without Andy Dalton, now the Bengals, conceivably, if the Bengals win one more game, they've done it. All right? But can the Bengals win a game without Andy Dalton? Because it's not like they have who knows? That's going to be the question mark here. Because if they don't win another game, the Steelers can conceivably win this division. And then it's the same deal for the Bengals as it's been in the last few years. Get in as a wild card, see you later. But even if that isn't the case, even if the Bengals come out and win at least one of their next 3 games and pretty much steal the deal, any chance the Bengals getting the 1 seed, and more than likely the 2 seed, is gone. It's gone. And that's huge. Because it wasn't just about winning the division. It was about becoming one of those elite level teams, being in them top 2 for them. They had that. They lost it. They had an advantage. They lost it. Now, you can't help that the quarterback got hurt. You can't help injuries. And who knows how this game would have went should there have not been injuries. But that's the hand you've been dealt. And it's unfortunate. It's a big win for the Steelers, who right now are right there with the Jets as far as a playoff spot goes. So, all right, awful game, but for the Steelers, a good win. For the Bengals, a devastating loss that accompanied with significant injuries. However, that loss wasn't as far as that game. I shouldn't say loss. That game, as far as ugliness, wasn't anything compared to what the Colts and the Jaguars put on. Now, from an offensive standpoint, the Jaguars put on a hell of a performance. Defensively, they got a lot of help from a Colts team that just looked completely and utterly like garbage on Sunday. The Colts played like garbage on Sunday. Now, look, Matt Hasselbeck, he's 40 years old, did the best he could. You know what? You let that go. I'm not going to put out all this at Matt Hasselbeck's feet. What I'm going to put this on is the feet of the defense of the Indianapolis Colts, who played like garbage on Sunday. I get that Jacksonville is no easy game anymore. They're 5-8 this year. Kudos to them. I get that Jacksonville can score points all of a sudden now, and their defense isn't anything to sneeze at. Their defense over the years has been surprisingly good most of the time. I'm not saying, and I know we went into this week talking about how the Colts Jaguars games are always close, but this one wasn't close. This was an embarrassment for the Indianapolis Colts. You're playing for your division. Every game matters, and you played like that? Embarrassing. That game was embarrassing for the Colts. It's like you lie down and just rolled over for them. Like, I mean, come on. I don't care how much better they are. It's Jacksonville. I don't care. I've given this Colts defense a lot of credit this year because they played better than they should have. But they did not show up in this game. You allow 51 points to the Jacksonville Jaguars. That means your defense did not show up. It's a huge win for the Jags, who, you know, might not make the playoffs this year, but they made strides this year. For the Colts, that's a game that you're going to look at, and you might even say they don't deserve to make the playoffs because of the kind of performance they gave in that game. That game was atrocious. That's a joke. And I like Chuck Pagano. God bless him. I like him. You can't, I mean, but if I were him, I walk out locker, I'm like, what the hell was that? That game was ugly. It's very odd that you call it a game in which a team scored 51 points ugly. But it was. It was an awful thing to watch because the Colts were so inept in this game that you didn't even want to care to watch it. Horrible game. Then you got the Chiefs, who are one of the hottest teams in football right now. Win a game 10-3 against the Chargers. Ugly. Horrible game. Horrible game. Chiefs get the win. You know, they're right there at 8-5. So you got three teams. Good for them. Ugly game. Not much can be said about it. Good defense by both teams. Offensively, it was horrible to watch. Redskins, Bears, not bad, not good either. Again, ugly game. Not as bad as the Chiefs Chargers, but close competitive game, at least nonetheless. The Redskins get the win 24-21. So the Redskins get themselves to 6-7 along with the Eagles. Bears, that was their last chance. We said last week this was kind of like a playing game, elimination game, kind of. Well, it was. It knocked the Bears out. So, ugly game, but at least a competitive game. So, Redskins win. Panthers put the finishing touch on the Falcons. The Falcons are done with a horrible performance. The Panthers beat the Falcons 38-0. A dominant performance by the Panthers. Anybody that thought they were going to leave the door open after for the Falcons or, you know, not play 100%, you know, given that they pretty much locked up everything they need to lock up, was fooling themselves because this was a dominant, complete performance by the Carolina Panthers at home. And the Falcons just didn't show up. I don't care how good Carolina was. They didn't show up. Falcons have had bad body language for the last 3 weeks. They are done. And this was their official, elimination. They are done. And that was a horrible, ugly performance. I don't know what happens with the Falcons from here. I don't know if the coach gets fired. I think that's probably a possibility. I don't know what they do with Matt Ryan. I just think what's happened with the Falcons is horrible. Horrible. An ugly, ugly, ugly performance by the Falcons and a great performance by the Panthers. That's one of those ugly games, but it's not ugly because of the Panthers. It's ugly because one team just didn't show up. Kind of like the Colts and the Jags. It wasn't ugly necessarily for the Jags, but because that one other team didn't show up, it made it ugly. That's kind of the way it works. Seahawks continue to roll. Big win over the Ravens. And again, another ugly game, 35-6. They keep rolling on. They're 8-5. Then the Raiders pull off a shocker just to keep themselves with a smidge chance. 15-12 over the Broncos. That gets them to 6-7. Again, very slim chance, but a chance nonetheless. Huge loss for the Broncos. An ugly game. Neither team's offense was any good. Defensively, it was gritty, but it wasn't always pretty to watch. Again, another ugly, horrible game. And we'll talk more about the significance of this game for the AFC in a moment, especially in light of the Bengals losing as well. The significance game was huge. Huge. But we'll talk more about that in a minute. Cowboys-Packers, again, not a pretty game, but a game which the Packers take 28-7. Cowboys do what they've been doing all year, do the best that they can to hang in there. Their defense did the best it could. Packers just did too much. And the Packers, of course, made some changes. Mike McCarthy, once again, calling the plays, which led to a little bit more running. And the Packers needed a change. All right, their offensive efficiency has been terrible since, I think, week 6. So they needed a change. It worked out this week. It wasn't always pretty, but they got the job done. They were able to put more points on the board. Their defense did the job. It wasn't a pretty game, but it was a win, and a win's what the Packers need. And really, the Packers are pretty much in the playoffs at this point anyway, 9-4 now. That was it for the Cowboys. That was really it. I mean, any hope that the Cowboys had went down in smoke in that game. I mean, they only had hope because everybody else around them was, obviously playing terrible, and the division kind of was, what it is what it is. It's the worst division in football. Your division leader is 6-7, and it's 3 of them. So 3 teams there. So, Cowboys had a sliver of hope, and that was gone. That's gone. So the Cowboys are officially done. But Packers was a big win there. Patriots, Texans, again, not a pretty game either. Sunday Night Football. Patriots just grinded it out, get a 27-6 win over a Texans team that we know is all about their defense. That's what they do. That's how they've been able to win so many games of late. Defense didn't perform very well. Patriots made the adjustments they needed to make and put the game away, and the Patriots get to 11-2. And here's what I mentioned about how the Broncos and the Raiders game was significant, especially in light of the Bengals losing to the Steelers. Last week was huge because the Patriots lost to the Eagles and fell all the way from the 1 seed to a 3. Bengals moved up to 1, Broncos moved up to 2. And then all of a sudden, everybody, Bengals, Broncos, the rest of the AFC is like, oh, the game, we might have finally knocked New England out, kept the game out of New England. Kept the AFC Championship game out of New England. Now we all stand a chance. Well, guess what? A week later, the Bengals lose their quarterback for who knows how long. Broncos lose the game inexplicably to the Raiders. And the Patriots win. And now the Patriots are back to being the 1 seed. And everybody else is back looking up at them, realizing that there's a very high likelihood that once again, the AFC Championship goes through New England. And that's what if you're the AFC, you wanted to avoid. So in 1 week's time, that was all negated. Now, in the Bengals case, you understand. Because it was an injury. There was other things going on. If you're the Broncos, boy, you let a chance to be the 1 seed swept right through your hands. Look, here's the bottom line. You got to win your games. You got to beat these teams you should beat. The Broncos should have beaten the Raiders, and they didn't. You give the Bengals a pass because there's injuries involved there. Broncos should have won that game, and they might live to regret it. And the AFC right now is all just looking up at New England going, up, here we go again. And New England didn't look great either. And look, they are still very vulnerable, but you let them have what they want and what really they need more this year than any other year right now because of how vulnerable they are. Home field. So New England back on top in the AFC as far as the 1 seed goes. And then we had Monday Night Football, which wasn't pretty either, although it wasn't pretty so much. It wasn't ugly so much in terms of the defense of the offense. It was more ugly in terms of the defense, which no team played. But the Giants get a big win, 31-24, a much-needed win to keep them atop the NFC East, along with the Eagles and the Redskins. Dolphins, if you thought they had any chance, that chance is gone. They're at 5-8. So the Giants stay atop of the NFC East, along with the Eagles and the Redskins. So that's going to go down to the wire. Well, it is. So it was a really ugly week in the NFL. A lot of ugly games, a lot of blowout games, a lot of major WTF losses. A complete reversal in the AFC of what happened last week, where now the Patriots are back on top. The NFC East continues to be a logjam, and as far as the playoff picture goes, we got some clarity as far as both the NFC and the AFC is now. We kind of know really what teams are kind of still left in the mix. On the NFC side, it'd be the Seahawks, the Vikings, the Packers. I mean, I think those spots in the NFC are pretty much set at this point. You're gonna get the Seahawks, and you're gonna get whoever doesn't win the NFC North between the Packers and the Vikings will get a wild card. So the NFC is pretty much set. Really, the only thing left to decide is who's the NFC East champion, and then that will lock everything up. AFC side of things, seeding is obviously going to be play a part. But look, the fact of the matter is that the Patriots getting back on top last week in the AFC is huge because I don't see them losing another game. So I think the chance for anybody to knock them out of that 1 seed or even 2 seed is gone now. Because they all have tougher schedules, and the Patriots, it's not even going to really matter. They don't lose games in December too often. I know they lost one last week, but they don't lose them too often, and they usually close the deal when they're in these situations. So I think the Patriots are gone as far as the 1 seed goes at this point. But as far as the rest of the AFC, I think the Bills have pretty much played their way out of it. I think, as far as them leftover spot, look, the only things left to decide, in my opinion, I think the Steelers are going to make it. I think the Steelers are going to make it. And then you got that one wild card, which probably will go to the Jets. Oh, it's going to go to the Jets or the Chiefs. One or the other. And those are the only teams still left. And the only thing left outside of that is who wins the AFC South. Is the Colts or the Texans? And that's it. That's all that's left to be decided. So we got clarity. We know who's kind of still in the mix and who's not, and that's what's going to play itself out now. All the pretenders have been weeded out, and now it's just about seeding and finishing everything out and filling the gaps and saying, okay, let's head into the playoffs. That's really what it's all about right now. So it was a horrible week in the NFL. It really was. It was hard to watch. It really was. And some of these games we all were looking forward to. We all thought could be good games, but the Steelers and the Bengals just didn't end up that way. As for how we did on predictions, I'll let you know as soon as my pen actually works here, which it's not. There it goes. Okay, let's see. We had this. All right, so for those that, again, I will explain this every week because I know people get confused. Every week we do a pick 6 challenge for NFL picks. We pick 6 games, usually the best 6 games we can pick, at least games between potential playoff teams, competitive games, what we try to pick. I make 6 picks, and then my former technical producer who used to work with us on our show back when we were on Talk Show, his name is Jeff Tech. That's what we call him, Jeff Tech. He submits picks every week by email to me, and we kind of go back and forth and can be competitive about. It's what we've done on the show for a number of years. Even though he's no longer on the show, we still, for our longtime fans, we do it as kind of a treat for them to keep this up. So we each pick 6 games every week. We talk about the games we're going to pick before the show, and then that way, I have his picks ahead of time. You know what I mean? So, and we go head to head, obviously. Off of this week, week 14, I went 4-2, and he went 5-1. So Jeff Tech with a very good week. I go 4-2, and through week 14. My record for the season now stands at 54-34, and Jeff Tech stands at 52-36. So he's closed the gap. He's 2 games out. He has closed the gap. So that's making for an interesting end of the season race here. between us. So we'll see what happens. It should be an interesting couple weeks here. And of course, we still got the playoffs left too. So, yeah. So, all right. So that's how we did for our picks for week 14. I went 4-2. I had the Eagles, the Panthers, the Patriots. I had the Eagles, the Panthers, the Patriots, the Packers, all right, and I had the Bears and the Bengals wrong. Jeff Tech had the Steelers, the Panthers, the Patriots, the Packers, and the Redskins all right, and the Bills wrong. So, again, 54-34 for me, 52-36 for Jeff Tech on the season. That's how we're doing on our picks so far this year. Now we jump to talking about what's to come. After talking about what's already happened, week 15 of the NFL season, we enter the final 3 weeks of the NFL season, and you hope at the very least you're hoping it's going to be a better week than last week in terms of the quality of games. You got underway last night though with a game, Thursday Night Football, which last week had a great game. This week not so much, although it was competitive, as this wasn't a game that many people probably care to see. A game between the 6-8 Rams and the 6-7 Buccaneers, which ended with a Rams win, 31-23, which if you had any hope for the Buccaneers, that officially kind of killed it. Both these teams now at 6-8. Neither one really has a chance at this point. It's a nice win for the Rams. They had a nice couple of weeks. They needed it. Tough loss for the Buccaneers. Again, any swim hopes they had are now done. It wasn't the worst played game. It was a decent game, but, it's not a game that a lot of people probably cared about. So that happens on Thursday Night Football and Monday Night Football sometimes. So, all right, so that's how your Thursday Night Football got. That's how Thursday Night Football got Week 15 underway. What's on tap for the rest of Week 15? Well, here's the thing, folks. This week you got your first foray into Saturday Night Football. There is going to be a Saturday Night Football game this weekend, and that, as far as the NFL goes, that game will be between the Jets and the Cowboys. I'll get back to that game in just a moment. But first, I want to jump to the Sunday games and pick some of those right out of the gate here, because there are a few good ones. And one of the best ones is going to be a game that's going to be it's for first place because both teams are tied. It's a 1:00 p.m. Eastern game on CBS in Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, Indiana. The 6-7 Texans, 2-4 on the road at the 6-7 Colts, 3-3 at home. Obviously, it's going to be a must-win for both teams. You got 3 weeks to go. You're both tied for the division. Whoever wins this game is going to be a game up. Both Texans coming off an ugly showing at the Patriots. Colts coming off a really ugly showing against the Jaguars. I think the Colts, if they have any pride and they feel any embarrassment about last week's game, I think they're going to come out of the gate here at home and play a really, really good game. Now, whether Andrew Luck plays or not, who knows? But I still think they're going to play a very good game. I expect their defense to be better. I think the Colts win this game. The Texans are all about their defense, but Hasselbeck, whether Hasselbeck plays, whoever plays, I think they can put up enough points on the Texans, and the Texans can't really score a whole lot to begin with. I think regardless of the circumstances, whether Luck plays or Hasselbeck plays or whatever the case, because Hasselbeck gets hurt too, I still think the Colts find a way to win this game. Because while the Texans can defend, they struggle really, really badly to put up points, and the Colts are going to put up points no matter who is playing. So I'm picking the Colts here, and what I imagine is going to be a very, very, very close game. Only because of the Texans defense, I think they'll keep it close. I'm picking the Colts, and as always, for those of you who do not know, Jeff Tech lives in Indianapolis. He always picks the Colts. Doesn't matter who they're playing. Usually the Colts and the Broncos, because the Broncos have ties to the Colts because of Peyton Manning. So he usually picks those teams every week. So, but yeah, I'm picking the Colts. So is he. Let's see what else is on tap here. Lots of good, actually a lot more games this weekend than last weekend that are interesting. We're going to jump to the Sunday night game real quick because this is an obvious choice. 8:30 p.m. Eastern game on NBC from Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The 11-2 Cardinals, 6-1 on the road. 6-7 Eagles, 3-3 at home. Eagles have had a ton of momentum. They beat the Patriots. They beat the Bills last week. They're right back in it. They need every win they can get to stay at top of their division, trying to make the playoffs. The Cardinals looking to continue to, looking to solidify their seed more likely as the 2 seed in the NFC. Far more on the line for the Eagles because the Cardinals, are going to make the playoffs. It's no big deal. They obviously want that 2 seed at the very least. So It should be a high-quality game, good amount of offense. Both teams can score. Both teams can defend. It should be a very well-balanced game. I expect it to be a really entertaining, well-played game. I'm picking the Eagles here. I'm picking the Eagles here because I think the Eagles are more desperate. I think they have a little bit more momentum than the Cardinals have. Even though the Cardinals, I'm sure, are going to play a very good game. They're going to play hard. It's going to be competitive and everything. At the same time, like I said, the Eagles do have a little bit more to play for because even the Cardinals lose this game, they're more than likely still going to get the 2 seed. So I'm picking the Eagles here. I just think there's too much momentum. They're at home. They've been playing very well. I like the Eagles to win this game. And Jeff Tech has picked the Cardinals. So put that thing there. Put that in my stats here. All right. Next up. A 4:25 p.m. Eastern game on CBS from Heinz Field in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The 10-3 Broncos, 6-1 on the road at the 8-5 Steelers, who are 5-2 at home. Steelers have some good momentum coming out of the Bengals game. Had a good couple weeks here. Still have a faint hope at winning the division. Broncos coming off an ugly, ugly loss to the Raiders. Look, you got to think the Broncos are going to play better than last week. They're going to play a really tough team here in the Steelers. It's going to be a very physical game. I expect it to be a little more low scoring than people think because both teams have relatively good defenses. The Steelers obviously the more physical of the two, but I expect a very low scoring game. But I think the Broncos coming out of that game last week, they got their teeth kicked in a little bit. I like the Broncos here only because I think the running game is going to give the Steelers a little bit of fit. It's going to open things up downfield late in the game. I think the Broncos late in the game will be able to open things up a bit. And the Broncos have been in these kind of gritty, gritty games before. Early in this year, they did it against the Ravens. I think they'll be okay in this kind of game. They'll find ways to score, and I think they'll be okay. And then they'll open things up, and I think they'll be able to go downfield a little bit. So I'm going to go with the Broncos in this game. And, of course, as I said, Jeff Tech always goes with the Broncos and the Colts no matter what it seems. So he's going with the Broncos as well. All right. That should be a good game, though. All right. Next up. 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern game on Fox from MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. The 13-0 Panthers, 6-0 on the road at the 6-7 Giants, 3-3 home. Obviously, like the Eagles and like the Redskins, Giants need wins. They need to keep winning. They're playing an unbeaten team in their building. Look, the Giants always seem to rise to occasions like this, but here's the thing. The Panthers aren't just good on one side of the ball. They're good on both sides of the ball. They've been absolutely dominant the last couple of weeks. They don't seem to be slowing down at all, not caring about the fact they pretty much locked everything up. I like the Giants a lot, but I think the defense of the Panthers is too good. Giants don't have enough of a defense to stop the Panthers on offense. I don't think this is a good matchup at all for the Giants. While it might end up close early on, I think eventually the Panthers run away with it. I'm picking the Carolina Panthers in this game. As is Jeff Tech as well. So far, me and Jeff Tech's 3 of the same picks, but just because these games might be the better games of the weekend doesn't mean that, that may not be easy to predict. All right, let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, there's the 2 games we want to pick. All right, 2 more games we want to pick here. A 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern game on Fox from FedEx Field in Landover, Maryland. It's 6-7 Bills. 3-4 on the road at the 6-7 Redskins, 5-2 at home. This is the Bills' last chance. They have to win this game or they have no chance. Right now, their chance is very slim, but this is it. Again, like the Giants and the Eagles, Redskins need to win. They're all tied for the NFC East. They need to win. Redskins have been very tough to play at home, been very, very good at home on both sides of the football. We talked about the Redskins being a surprise competitive team this year. Redskins are going to put a good game on the Bills. The question for the Bills is going to be this. Can they guard the Redskins downfield? Can they keep the Redskins from making big plays downfield? If they don't do that, they're not going to win this game. Because the Bills will be I'm confident the Bills will be able to stop the running game of the Redskins. I'm confident in that. But can they stop them from going downfield? That's the question. I don't think they can. So I'm going on that note. I think the Redskins have an obvious advantage there. I'm picking the Redskins to win this game at home. Jeff Tech is picking the Bills. So we finally get a different pick in there. All right, the last game we're going to pick, I said we go back to that Saturday night game. Well, we're going to go back to that Saturday night game. A Saturday night game, NFL game at 8:25 p.m. Eastern on the NFL Network from AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. The 8-5 Jets, 3-3 on the road, 4-9 Cowboys, 1-5 at home. A game the Jets have to have. You know, there's a log jam on the bottom of the AFC. The Steelers, Jets, and Chiefs all at 8-5, all needing wins here as for 3 weeks to go. I expect this to be a fairly close game. The Jets' offense at this point is probably better than the Cowboys, but the Cowboys have a good enough defense to keep an offense like the Jets down. They've proven that even with all the injuries. They've proven that this year. Their defense has kept them in a lot of games. Jets have a great defense, too. You know they'll be on their game in this game against the Cowboys. But, again, with the Cowboys, with so many injuries, their defense doesn't really have to do as much to begin with anyway. I expect a very close, kind of gritty, low-scoring kind of game here. And I think I haven't really picked a true upset yet. And I always try to pick one a week. I'm going to actually pick the Cowboys to win this game, and here's why. Again, I figure the defenses for both teams are good enough to keep this a low-scoring game, and the Cowboys will feel comfortable with that. The Jets obviously would be comfortable with that too, but for the Cowboys, I think they even with their in the state they're in, they still have more talent than the Jets do. They still have more talent than the Jets do. So if it's a low-scoring game, I always tend to think that talent wins out. Because you got better players, they'll find more ways to make plays in those situations. So for that reason, I'm going to pick the Cowboys in what I think will be a very close, low-scoring game over the Jets. Jeff Tech is going to go with the Jets. So those are our 6 games that we're going to pick. So we picked the Saturday night game, picked the Sunday night game. We picked pretty much all the big Sunday games. So we picked pretty much all the big games, at least that matter, in my opinion, from this week's NFL schedule. So, all right. So outside of those games, is there anything else outside of those games? What else is going on in the NFL this week? Buccaneers Rams last night, as I mentioned, with the Rams won 31-23. Jets Cowboys on Saturday, which is a game we already picked. Also on Sunday, in addition to the games that we made picks for, you have a 1:00 p.m. Eastern game on Fox from Minneapolis, Maryland, between the 5-8 Bears, 4-2 on the road, and the 8-5 Vikings, 4-2 home. Obviously, the Vikings right now look like a team that's going to make it, but you know, can't really afford a loss. Keep another team alive in the race. So, really, a game the Vikings need to get. If they have any hopes to win the division and of course to lock up the playoff spot. But it's not going to be easy. The Bears are going to give them a good game. That's going to be a good game, I think. That's going to be, even on the road, that's going to be a good game. I think the Vikings will win it, especially at home, but it's going to be a good game. 1:00 p.m. Eastern time on Fox from Jacksonville, Florida. The 6-7 Falcons, 3-4 on the road. 5-8 Jaguars, 4-3. I think the Jaguars are going to win this game. The Falcons, I mentioned this earlier. Falcons' body language, the way they played, they've been horrible. They don't look like they even want to be there half the time. And Jacksonville at home, and would have been good this year. Beat the Colts last week, 51-16. Their offense is a lot better. They made some big strides. I think the Jaguars are going to win this game. I think they got enough momentum. I think they're going to win this game. I favor them. Let's see. We picked that game. 1:00 p.m. Eastern game on CBS from Foxborough, Massachusetts. It's the 3-10 Titans, 2-4 on the road at the 11-2 Patriots, 6-1 at home. Well, I think this game's an easy one to predict. The Titans have been horrible, and the Patriots are the Patriots. So the Patriots all the way in this game. That game we picked. Let's see. 1:00 p.m. Eastern game on CBS from Baltimore, Maryland. 8-5 Chiefs, 4-3 on the road. 4-9 Ravens, 2-4 at home. Not going to be an easy game. Chiefs need it. Again, they got that log jam for the AFC wildcard. All those teams at 8-5. Chiefs need the game. It should be a low-scoring, defensive kind of battle. The Ravens are not easy to play, even in their weekend injury-plagued state. I think the Chiefs will find a way to get the win, but it won't be easy, and it'll be a very close game. But I'd favor the Chiefs, but not by much. 4:05 p.m. Eastern on Fox from Seattle, Washington. 3-10 Browns, 1-5 on the road. 8-5 Seahawks, 4-2 at home. Seahawks have been on the road. They've beaten a lot of good teams of late. Great momentum. They're looking like this is typical Seattle. late season, just like last year, pulling it together. Seahawks to win this game easily, especially at home. Let's see here. We got next up 4 or 5 p.m. Eastern game on Fox from Oakland, California. The 9-4 Packers, 4-2 on the road. 6-7 Raiders, 2-4 home. Raiders coming off a shocking win against the Broncos at home. They've beaten some good teams this year. They're going to give the Packers a little bit. They went through the middle part of the season when they kind of fell off a little bit, which is what ultimately will keep them out of the playoffs. They went through a little bit of a rut. And they kind of come out of it now. So they're gonna get the Packers a tough time, especially defensively. So this won't be an easy one. And Packers, I think, will find a way to win it, but it'll be a close one, I think. Let's see, we picked that game. 4:25 p.m. Eastern, CBS from San Diego, California. 5-8 Dolphins, 3-4 on the road. 3-10 Chargers, 2-5 home. Game doesn't really matter much. I'd favor the Dolphins. Chargers have been good defensively, but on offense they've been struggling a little bit. So with that, I think the Dolphins can put up enough points even against the Chargers defense. I favor the Dolphins a little bit in this game. I think they've been playing a little bit better, and so I favor the Dolphins, but not that the game matters much. 4:25 p.m. Eastern, CBS from Santa Clara, California. 10-3 Bengals, 5-1 on the road. 4-9 49ers, 3-3 at home. Boy, the Bengals, if they could have picked a team to play the week after the Steelers, this is the team to play. Although they are very physical defensively, but the Bengals can get the job done on defense. And look, they're playing a team in the 49ers that can't score. And that's going to make it easier for the Bengals defense, which is already a pretty solid defense anyway. They really, if they wanted a low-scoring game, which I imagine they would want with all the injuries they have with Dalton and everything, they got one. And that's the perfect thing that they needed right now. So, I said the Bengals need, one win to lock it up. They probably will get it this week. I mean, it's a good draw for them to get this week. So, helps them out a little bit. So, I think I'd favor the Bengals here. It'll be a close, low-scoring game, but I'd favor the Bengals here. All right, we picked the Sunday night game. And then the Monday night game, not really a good one, but ESPN's been very lucky that they end up, even though these games on paper look awful, they end up having at least competitive games. Monday Night Football, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, ESPN from New Orleans, Louisiana, the Superdome, Mercedes-Benz Superdome. It's the 4-9 Lions, 1-5 on the road, 5-8 Saints, 3-3 on both teams is playing for pride. Saints coming off a big win last week. Lions have kind of made the season look a little bit better for them. This game's really a crapshoot. Both teams we know can score points. The Lions probably have the better defense. Actually, they do have the better defense, especially from a standpoint of run defense. So, I'll favor the Lions here, even though it's at New Orleans. I'll favor the Lions here. New Orleans has been very kind of up and down. And when in doubt, if you think a game is pretty even, go with the team. Go with the team that you think has the slightly better defense. And I think the Lions have the slightly better defense, so I'd go with that. They're pretty equal outside of the run defense, probably. So. I'd go with the Lions because of the run defense. That's just me, though. All right, so that's what's coming up this weekend in the NFL for Week 15. Again, keep in mind, you do have a Saturday night game as well this week. And again, the games that we made picks for, here they are for Week 15. Myself and Jeff Tech both picked the Colts over the Texans. I picked the Eagles over the Cardinals. Jeff Tech the Cardinals over the Eagles. We both picked the Broncos. We both picked the Broncos over the Steelers. We both picked the Panthers over the Giants. I picked the Redskins over the Bills over the Redskins for Jeff Tech. I picked the Cowboys over the Jets. Jets over the Cowboys for Jeff Tech. That's your pick six challenge. NFL picks for Week 15. We'll look back at those picks next week and obviously talk about all the games and all that we usually do on next week's Football Blitz show. So that's the NFL story. Now let's go to college football. And really quickly, before I talk about the bowl games, let me briefly talk about the Heisman. We talked a lot about this last week, and how, in a lot of ways, you had a lot of people think McCaffrey from Stanford should have won it. That would have been my choice. And then you had the Clemson quarterback. And I think a lot of people would probably split between giving it to the quarterback of the number one team in the country, who is quarterback and an unbeaten number one team in the country, or giving it to who many people feel is the best player in McCaffrey from Stanford. And I think, and I mentioned this last week. I mentioned that maybe the votes could be split between those two, and then the Alabama player gets it. And I think that's probably what happened. I think that's probably what happened. I think that's, you know, and look, it helps that the kid played for Alabama. It helps that, you know, SEC and everything. There's always a tremendous you know, amount of value placed on that. And again, too, you know what? Even if you don't want to believe there was a vote split between McCaffrey and the Clemson quarterback, I'm blanking on his name for some reason right now, so I apologize for that. Even if you don't want to believe that, I think what happened was, too, you have two running backs and maybe a quarterback, and then you got a quarterback. And, you know, if the two running backs didn't exactly get all the vote and people weren't exactly sold on the Clemson quarterback, well, then, you know, there's always the potential for somebody to eke out a victory, and maybe that's what happened. You know, the Alabama kid eked out a victory. I don't think this was a huge unanimous kind of Heisman vote. Okay, I don't think there was like somebody won by a large amount of votes. I think it was a very close vote between all three. I'm banking on the fact that McCaffrey and the Clemson quarterback kind of like negated each other. People were split between the two, and that's how the Alabama kid won. That's what I'm thinking of. And I apologize. I only know McCaffrey. I'm blanking on names right now. Yeah, I'm blanking on names right now. I apologize. It's been a week. And look, let's be honest. This was not the most popular Heisman year. Like, this wasn't a big Heisman year. This wasn't a great Heisman year. It was just, you know, it just wasn't. It wasn't like, you know, when Fournette was involved, people seemed to care more. Once Fournette started playing like absolute garbage for a little bit, people stopped caring. I think, the only other name I heard routinely after that was McCaffrey, and that was it. So, congratulations to the winner. And, you know, and again, I know I'm being very vague here. There's not much I can say, because I'm blanking on names. You know, I don't want to begrudge the point, but yeah, I think that it was probably a very close vote. I think that, again, maybe, you know, you had the two players negate each other in the voting and have the Alabama player sneak in. That's probably what happened. Derrick Henry. There's the Alabama player's name. Derrick Henry. I just thought of it. Yeah. Derrick Henry. Again, good player. I mean, none of these players, I think I mentioned this last week, none of these players are great. They're all good. None of them are great. And that's probably why there was a close vote. That's probably why it was a close vote. And again, you know, maybe McCaffrey and the Clemson quarterback's name, I cannot think of his name for the life of me. I apologize for that. Oh, I wish I could think of his name right now. I thought of the Alabama player's name. I thought of him. I just wish I could think of his name. I think it starts with and, you know, I watched Clemson play a million times this year. Trying to think of what his name is. That's gonna mess me up for the rest of the show today. Not knowing his name. That's gonna mess me up for the rest of the show today. And I know people are gonna say, well, why don't you just look it up? Well, I want to try to think about looking up to Deshaun Watson. That's his name. I knew his last name started with a W. All right, so Deshaun Watson. So what probably happened was they split the votes, and that's what allowed that's what probably allowed the Henry to win. Watson and McCaffrey probably kind of split the votes, and it was probably a close vote, which I imagine it is. And I think you can look. I think the voting numbers are out there probably anyway. I just don't feel like looking at them. I think I looked at them the day after, And I remember thinking they were close. So I'm pretty sure they were. Looking back on it. And again, I this was 4 days ago, so keep in mind. But yeah, that's my best theory as to what happened. A lot of people like McCaffrey. There was a lot of voters that like Deshaun Watson because he's the quarterback on the #1 team in the country, which is unbeaten. Split the vote. Henry plays for Alabama, who's the #2 team in the country, plays for an SEC powerhouse. He was going to have a tremendous amount of votes, and that carries a lot of weight, and then he ended up sneaking in and winning the award. That's my theory. But so congratulations to Derrick Henry. Congratulations to the final 3 finalists. It was, again, it wasn't the best. It wasn't the best Heisman race, but man, none of the 3 finalists are what I consider great players. They could be down the road. Right now they're just good players, and that's nothing to sneeze at either. If you're a good player, that's not nothing. That's not bad either. Not everybody's great. They'll still make a good career in the NFL just being good. So, but that's all I really have to say. I wasn't really. I think we talked about a lot of scenarios last week with the Heisman, and again, that's the best guess for what I think happened. Watson and McCaffrey canceled each other out, and Henry stuck it at what? That's pretty much what I think happened. So, all right. Let's get to the bowl games. Now, last year we made picks for all the bowl games, and we are going to do that this year. And again, we're going to split this into 2. What we're going to do is we're going to predict all the games, all the bowl games that go from, because they start tomorrow, so that's why we kind of have to do this today. We're going to predict all the bowl games starting from tomorrow all the way through Christmas Eve. And then we'll predict the rest of them next week. So from December 26th, there's no games on Christmas Day. From December 26th all the way through New Year's and beyond, we'll pick. But we won't pick the playoff games next week. We'll wait a week on those. All right, sound good? All right, so here we go. Let's get right down to it. Bowl predictions. Here. Now, Jeff Tech, for those of you wondering if Jeff Tech would participate with me on this, he is not. He doesn't really watch enough college football to participate on this, so it'll just be me. First game we're going to pick is the Air Force Reserve Celebration Bowl, which many people probably don't know much about. It's between Alcorn State and North Carolina A&T. It's from Atlanta in the Georgia Dome. It's at noon on ABC tomorrow. I've actually seen Alcorn State play, and I haven't seen North Carolina A&T play. So it's kind of hard to predict. This is what makes some of these bowl games hard to predict, because you don't see every team. But nonetheless, I'm going to try to make a prediction here, and because I've seen Alcorn State, I'm going to pick Alcorn State in this game, just because I don't know. I've never seen North Carolina A&T play, so it's kind of hard to predict them. So Alcorn State over NC State A&T for me. So I apologize if my analysis on that one wasn't very good. It's just I haven't seen the other team play, so it's kind of hard. All right, Gildan, New Mexico Bowl, which is also coming up tomorrow, between Arizona and New Mexico, and out from Albuquerque University Stadium, 2 p.m. on ESPN tomorrow. I have seen both these teams play. I really like Arizona a lot. This to me is an easy game. I think they're just a more complete team. This one to me is an easy pick, and I apologize if my analysis is not very thorough, but this one's just an easy pick. Sometimes this easy. Some of these games are just easy because you think the other team is just the flat-out better team. and this is the case here. Even though Albuquerque, I mean, it's almost very close for both these teams, but so home field is not really a big deal. But yeah, I like Arizona over New Mexico here. Easy for me. Easy game to pick. All right. Then you got the Royal. I love the names of some of these bowl games. Royal Purple, Las Vegas Bowl. Between BYU and Utah. This game from Las Vegas, Sam Boyd Stadium, 3:30 p.m. Eastern tomorrow on ABC. I've seen both these teams play. This, to me, I think is a fairly even game. I think the defense of Utah is probably the more impactful X factor in this game, more so than the BYU offense. Meaning I think their defense is better than BYU's offense. So on that note, I'm going to pick Utah in this game over BYU. Okay. Raycom Media Carmelia Bowl. Okay. Let that one roll off your tongue. Raycom Media Carmelia Bowl. This game is between Ohio and Appalachian State from Montgomery, Alabama. The Crampton Bowl in Montgomery, Alabama, 5:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. I've seen Ohio, have not seen Appalachian State. So this is going to be one of those games where I'm going to pick the team that I've seen because I feel more comfortable picking a team that I've seen. So I'm going to pick Ohio over Appalachian State. Just because I've seen Ohio play. Again, that's not most thorough analysis, but I digress. Cure Bowl. Between San Jose State and Georgia State. It's from Orlando at the Orlando Citrus Bowl at 7 p.m. tomorrow on CBS Sports Network. I've seen both these teams play. I'll be honest, I like Georgia State better. I think they're offensively more efficient. And I think they have more playmakers on defense. So because of that, I'm leaning towards Georgia State in this game. So that's what I'm going to pick. Georgia State over San Jose State in this game. All right. And again, I'm going quickly through a lot of these because here's the thing. These are a lot of the games that, unless you're a fan of these teams or unless you're just a diehard college football fan, people don't really, not to be offensive here, not that the people just don't seem to care about as much. So, or seek out unless they happen to be already at home watching TV and just want to watch a game of any kind. You know what I mean? So, all right. Next up is the R plus L Carriers New Orleans Bowl. And some of these bowls are very traditional bowls that have been around for a while. So, and those games tend to be watched a little more than maybe some of the newer ones. Arkansas State versus Louisiana Tech in this game from New Orleans, Mercedes-Benz Superdome. This one at 9 p.m. on ESPN. I've seen Louisiana Tech. I've not seen Arkansas State. I don't know if it would have mattered to me much in this game if I've seen Arkansas State. I really like Louisiana Tech. So this one to me is easy. My assumption is, and maybe that's wrong to assume if I haven't seen a team play, but when I've seen Louisiana Tech and I've seen them twice, they look good both times. So it's one of those things where I haven't seen the other teams. I'm going to pick the team I'm comfortable with, but I feel comfortable even if I had seen Arkansas State, picking Louisiana Tech. So I'm going to pick Louisiana Tech in this game. So Louisiana Tech for me in this game. So that's all of tomorrow's games. Now we go to the December 21st games. And there's only one on that day. And that is the Miami Beach Bowl And that's between Western Kentucky and South Florida. Now, as you go along, you start to get into more teams you probably stand a better chance I haven't seen. I've seen both these teams. This game from Miami, Florida, Marlins Park, 2:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN on Monday. I've seen both these teams play. Both teams can score the ball. Both teams have a couple of playmakers on defense that can be difference makers. However, I like Western Kentucky a little bit more. I think they got a little bit more experience. I think they're a little bit more explosive. So I'm going to pick Western Kentucky in this game over South Florida. All right, that's it for the December 21st game. Now we go to the December 22nd games. There's more than one on this, not just two. This, of course, being Tuesday, December 22nd. Famous Idaho Potato Bowl is the first game we're going to pick from that day. Famous Idaho Potato Bowl. And this game's between Akron and Utah State from Boise, Idaho, Albertson Stadium, 3:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN on December 22nd. I have seen both these teams play. To me, this is a very even kind of game. I expect it to be a little bit more low scoring, not necessarily the prettiest game. From what I've seen, I think the Utah State defense is a little bit more physical, a little bit more better up front. So because of that, I'm going to go with Utah State over Akron in this game. Okay. And then we got the I'm guessing this is I apologize if I got this wrong. Marma Boca Raton Bowl. And this is between Toledo and Temple from Boca Raton, Florida, and FAU Stadium at 7 p.m. on ESPN on December the 22nd. This one's an easy game for me. Toledo and Temple, I've seen both teams. One's more on the defensive, grittier side. That's Temple. One's more on the offensive, more wide open, throw the ball down the field side in Toledo. I like Temple here. I think they're going to impose their will on defense physically. So I just think their defense is too much for Toledo. Even an offense, a team like Toledo that can go down the field and put up some points. I like Temple here, so I'm going to pick Temple over Toledo. All right, so that's your December 22nd games. December 23rd, two more bowl games coming at you. First one, San Diego. I'm writing these down just to make sure I have enough of a record from both. San Diego County Credit Poinsettia Bowl, which is a very popular bowl. This game between Boise State and Northern Illinois from San Diego Qualcomm Stadium, 4:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. This one to me is easy. I like Boise State here. I think they just got too much on both sides of the football. To me, this is an easy one. Boise State. To me, this is just a mismatch, kind of game. Boise State over. If I can ever get this pen to work. Boise State over Northern Illinois. This pen is just terrible right now. All right, that's the first game. Second game is the GoDaddy Bowl. It's probably a game that you've all heard of before, GoDaddy Bowl. This game is between Georgia Southern and Bowling Green from Mobile, Alabama at Ladd-Peebles Stadium, 8 p.m. at ESPN on December the 23rd. Again, this is another easy game for me. Georgia Southern, Bowling Green. I just think Bowling Green's flat out better. When you look at a team and they just think they're more complete on both sides of the football, I hate to be very short here, but I just think they're flat out better. So Bowling Green for me over Georgia Southern. All right, so those are the December 23rd games. Two more games on Christmas Eve. We got the Popeyes Bahamas Bowl between Middle Tennessee and Western Michigan. This from Nassau, Bahamas and Robinson National Stadium, noon on ESPN. Both these teams I have seen. Both these teams have been hit or miss. It really, to me, depends more or less on what you trust more. Do you trust that Middle Tennessee is going to be able to do enough against the defense of Western Michigan, or do you trust that the defense of Western Michigan, I probably do trust that the offense of Western Michigan is going to be able to do enough against Middle Tennessee. I trust Western Michigan a little bit more, and that's why I'm going to pick Western Michigan in this game. That's just the logic I'm going to use here because they've both been very hit or miss and unpredictable. So Western Michigan over Middle Tennessee for me. All right. And then Hawaii Bowl between San Diego State and Cincinnati from Honolulu Aloha Stadium, 8 p.m. on ESPN. Again, I've seen both these teams play. Cincinnati a little bit more physical, a little bit more defensive oriented. San Diego State can do a little bit more on offense, I'd imagine. You know, for an offensive team being in Hawaii, you know, it might play to your strengths a little bit. You know, a little warmer, you can get the ball down the field a little bit. You know, Cincinnati very physical up front though. So my feeling always is a team like Cincinnati, which can put a lot of pressure on an offense because of their defense and their physicality, is something that can always be dangerous to a team that's a little bit more offensive oriented, trying to get the ball down the field. So on that note, I'm going to go with Cincinnati here over San Diego State. All right. So that's all we're going to pick for today. The rest of the games we're going to pick next week. We'll pick all the so I guess it's for the first week of the bowl games. We'll pick all the December 26th game, which is a lot. We'll pick the December 28th, December 29th, December 30th games. December 31st is one game outside of the there's one game outside of the big playoff games, and then we'll have we'll pick everything outside the playoff games, the rest of them all next week. I realize it's not really the halfway point, but I wanted to kind of split it up somehow that made sense. So I figured keep splitting it up between the games before Christmas and the games after Christmas makes the most sense. So, all right. So here's the games we did pick, and that I did pick. Air Force Reserve Celebration Bowl, Alcorn State over North Carolina A&T. Gildan, New Mexico Bowl, Arizona over New Mexico. Cure Bowl, Georgia State over San Jose State. Royal Purple. Las Vegas Bowl, Utah over BYU. Wayland Media. I can't read what the heck I just wrote down, but Wayland Media Bowl, I'll just call it that. Ohio over Appalachian State. RNL. Carriers New Orleans Bowl, Louisiana Tech over Arkansas State. You have Boca Raton Bowl, Temple over Toledo. That's on December 22nd. Famous Idaho Potato Bowl, Utah State over Akron on December 21st. Miami Beach Bowl. Western Kentucky over South Florida on December the 22nd. December the 23rd. Poinsettia Bowl. Boise State over Northern Illinois. GoDaddy Bowl. Bowling Green over Georgia Southern. And December the 24th, Popeyes Bahamas Bowl. Western Michigan over Middle Tennessee. Hawaii Bowl, Cincinnati over San Diego State. So those are the bowl games we picked so far. Again, we'll pick more, the rest of the bowl games outside of the playoff games on next week's show. All right, so with that being said, again, as I mentioned at the start of the show, we are not going to do questions or comments again, because a lot of them you were either addressed during the show here today or the show over the last couple of weeks, so no need to get repetitive. So with all that being said, we are done for today. As always, the show might be over. Does not mean you have to stop interacting or contributing to our show. You can continue to have your voice heard. You can continue to give us your feedback, your show suggestions, your comments, your reactions, questions about the show and show scheduling, topic ideas, or breaking news items that you want to make sure we cover, as long as they're related to sports, entertainment, or wrestling. General questions, reactions, or comments to things we said on the show or things we discussed. Any of these things you can do via email, Facebook, and Twitter anytime. You can email us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. Please remember to use the hashtag, either hashtag itspotlight411 or hashtag ITS5, which represents our 5th anniversary on the air as a podcast. You can also find us on Facebook. To search for In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook, and make sure you like our page. We encourage you to follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest information about our show, especially as it relates to scheduling. Right now, as I said on the last few shows, including last Friday's show here for our football show, our new host site, Podbean, is not up. It will not be up until the first week of 2016. That's a personal choice on my part, because we'll be changing some things up creatively over the next few weeks. So I didn't want to start. I wanted to start everything all at once, kind of, almost like a little bit of a clean slate, so to speak. So because Podbean's not up, we don't have our more recent episodes up on iTunes yet. So as of the first week of 2016, Podbean will be up. We'll be putting new episodes up on iTunes again, and there'll be some changes to the show, both our primetime and our Football Blitz show. So you want to stay tuned for all that, and just be aware that all that is coming starting the first week of 2016. So right now, there is no way to catch up on our show currently in an audio format. If you're more if you find audio format more appealing, we do not have that luxury yet, but we will have that. For right now, though, if you want to keep up with all of our recent shows, all of our new episodes since we debuted here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube, make sure you check us out here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube. Just search for In the Spotlight 411 on both, and you'll have access to our channels where you'll find all 25 of our episodes since we debuted here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube, and that's how you can keep up with the show, rewatch episodes, all that good stuff. So make sure you note that. And again, we'll be available in audio format, have our new host site up, be available again with new episodes on iTunes. All that will be coming the first week of 2016. If you're somebody that's either a longtime fan that wants to check out older episodes of the show, maybe you're a new fan that wants to learn a little bit more about us and what we did prior to coming here to Google Hangouts and YouTube, you can check out our old episodes on either blogtalkradio.com, which is where you can find the first 31 episodes of our show. Our original 31 episodes are on there. And everything from after that to when we moved here to Google Hangouts and YouTube is on talkshoe.com, libsyn.com, and iTunes. So you can check out all of our old episodes on those sites. Blog Talk Radio, again, for the first 31 episodes. The original 31 episodes are on there. And everything else is on TalkShoe, Libsyn, and iTunes, leading up to our move here to Google Hangouts and YouTube. So on Blog Talk Radio, TalkShoe, Libsyn, and iTunes, you want to make, for them older episodes, you want to make sure you search what's under our old name, In the Spotlight with Brian Gardner. Again, that's In the Spotlight with Brian Gardner, and then you'll have access to those episodes and be able to check them out whenever you wish. So keep that in mind. And once we have Podbean up and running the first week of 2016, we'll have all those older episodes on Podbean so that everything's in one place for easy access. So keep that in mind for future reference, that all that will be a little bit easier in the a few weeks from now. So, all right. So with all that being said, that is it for today. That is it for this week. Next week and the week after will be much the same way, only 2 shows, one primetime show, one daytime show, which will be our Football Blitz show. However, the only difference between next week and the week after and this week is we'll be back. Our one primetime show will be back on a normal night, on one of our normal nights. That'll be Tuesday night. So our next show will be Tuesday night. This coming Tuesday night, December 22nd, broadcasting live here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Will be a sports entertainment combo show. We'll cover everything in sports outside of football. We'll cover some wrestling. We'll do our entertainment discussion, box office beat. We'll talk about Star Wars, obviously, entertainment news and notes, and, of course, TV highlights of the week. All that on Tuesday. And then keep in mind, that'll be the same kind of framework for our Tuesday show the week after as well. And then our second show next week will be our Football Blitz show. And please keep in mind that will not be on Friday. nor will it be on Thursday. It will be on Wednesday. This Wednesday, December the 23rd. Right now, I would say it'll probably be at 2:00 p.m. Eastern time. But if you want further confirmation on that, I'll give that to you on next Tuesday's primetime show or on Facebook and Twitter. Just look on Facebook and Twitter, or make sure you tune into our Tuesday night primetime show, and I'll confirm the time for you. But it will definitely be on Wednesday, December the 23rd, more than likely at 2:00 p.m. Eastern time. And then that same framework for the week after as well. Our Football Blitz show will be on Wednesday as well, because we want to avoid the holidays, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. So, all right, so 2 shows next week, 2 shows the week after, Tuesday primetime sports entertainment combo show, and then Wednesday Football Blitz show. That's the framework for next week and the week after. So keep all that information in mind as you go through the next couple of weeks. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, a great weekend, and a great start to your week next week. We'll see you back here for our next show, which will be this Tuesday night, December the 22nd, broadcasting live here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube at 8:00 p.m. Eastern time. And our next Football Blitz show, again, will be next Wednesday, December the 23rd, more than likely at 2:00 p.m. Eastern time, but stay tuned to our primetime show on Tuesday and to our Facebook and Twitter for further confirmation on that. Until Tuesday night here on Google Hangouts and YouTube at 8:00 p.m. Eastern time, have a great weekend, everybody. Have a good afternoon. We'll see you on Tuesday.